short, bold, and clever.
It's like Johnny Carson up there.
If we make them equal by force, if we put the principle of equality in the basis of our socio-political structure, it's the same thing as building a house on sand. Sooner or later, it will collapse, and that's exactly what happens. And we, as Soviet propaganda makers, are trying to push you in the direction which you go yourself. Equality, yes, equality. People are equal. Land of equal opportunities. Is it true or not? Think about it. Equal opportunities. Should there be equal opportunities? For me, and for a lazy bastard who comes here from some other country and immediately registers as a welfare recipient benefit. I never received a single dollar. No, sorry, I did receive once. But I never applied for welfare. For the 13 years, I took any job. Security guard, journalist, taxi driver, anything. Well, I was restless, but some people don't like it. They immediately. So why should we have equal opportunities? Why?
The equal opportunity to excel.
Equal opportunity in equal circumstances, yes, but people are different. To excel, yes, provided we reach the same level of excellency, perfection, which is hypothetical, distant future. Yes, maybe. But we know perfectly well that even with the best intentions, people could not be equal. Why should we have equality in the, say, legal system? Myself, I'm considering myself a law-abiding citizen, and a person who comes here to rob and shoot, say, the United States administration undercarded, imported thousands of Cuban criminals. They were non-criminals, yet they were accepted. Do you think it's fair if myself and my wife from Philippines, who work like a, horse as a lab technician in a hospital, should have the same rights as a criminal from Cuba? Why? And yet we repeat as parrots, equality, equality, equality. And the Soviet propaganda system helps us to believe that equality is something which is desirable. Democracy, as it was established by fathers of this country, of this system in the last century, is not equality. It's the system where different people, unequal people, have a chance to survive and help each other in constant competition, in constant perfection, not inequality, which is superimposed from a godfather or a nice person in Washington, D.C. And the absolute equality exists in Soviet Union, quote-unquote equality. Everybody is equal in dirt, except some people are more equal than the others in Politburo. So,
can I ask you a question?
Bring a country
to
the.
So what do you think about what he just said there? Like, because, and he did kind of, and this is what I mean about, maybe this is like kind of a language difference or something, but the equality in sense of opportunity, like what somebody could potentially have access to better themselves, like lowering the threshold for what you could do. Like, because he brings up, about his circumstances coming to Canada, and also like the criminal elements that also emigrated as well. And he kind of looked at it as like, well, am I equal to that person? And the answer is no, because of their choices, their individual choices. Yeah. They don't engage with a fair opportunity that might be offered to them, right? Like, which would be the entire point of coming to a country like Canada or the United States, at least at this time.
Yeah, no, I mean, I would agree with that. Like, if I'm getting you right, so he's saying that should he? I think he was saying, like, in terms of legalities and I guess green cards, should he get the same opportunity? Like, should somebody that has never broken the law in their life be given the same opportunity to get a green card as somebody that's a career rapist?
Yeah. Which obviously, I think because those choices were already made before the fact, I think the problem would be the fact that they could emigrate in the first place, that they could come in the first place, having that kind of personal history. I think maybe that's kind of what he's kind of getting at.
I think it is what he's trying to get at. Like, I think it is, but in those circumstances, like I this is harsh, but I feel like
Well, because
I
there's
just
nothing to suggest that like I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
no, no, all I was just thinking of whether to use an example of someone close to me, but there is somebody very close to me that, for example, can never step foot in American soil. Actually, there's two people close to me. One because he did something wrong in America, and the other because he did something wrong in the UK.
Mm-hmm.
And like as harsh as it sounds, although in those situations maybe I don't agree with it being so staunch, I definitely agree that somebody that's tried their hardest to never break the law, if it's down to them versus somebody that has broken the law, then I feel like it should go to the person that's tried their hardest to.
Yeah, I think like personal accountability should come
Yeah,
into these equations when it really in regards to anything.
yeah,
But like in just for this specific example, it's like that doesn't mean that a person can't rehabilitate themselves
no,
and then have an opportunity in the future. Like,
I
right?
agree.
Like that would be what we would want. We would want somebody to like
Yes,
prove to themselves and to society writ large that they are going to be functional participants in our structures and systems. Um,
yeah,
which
I agree.
I think is kind of what he's saying. Without I do like I said, I think there is a little bit of a language thing there where
Mm,
he's kind of being very literal about equality and equating it in ways that I think people might find confusing.
yeah, yeah.
I mean, not
Um,
everybody's as smart as us, Mark. You know what I mean?
well,
Like, not everybody's as savvy.
I wasn't going to say anything.
Real Sam Harris
Like,
types here.
Yeah,
of almost total demoralization, when nothing works anymore, when you are not sure whether it is right or wrong, good and bad, but there's no division between evil and good. When even the leaders of church sometimes say, well, violence for the sake of justice, especially social justice, is justified in the countries like Nicaragua, El Salvador, well, maybe Rhodesia, and we listen to them and say, yeah, probably it's true. Is it
Yeah,
true?
because
No,
we don't have
it's
to
not.
deal with it.
Violence is not justified, especially for the sake of quote-unquote social justice introduced by Marxist-Leninists. That is my form.
that's crazy to me.
What that
The
people
fact,
make excuses for abstract concepts of violence that they don't have to experience.
well, absolutely, but also the fact that over 30 years ago, this dude, this ex-KGB guy, is bringing up the phrase social justice. Social
Actually, yeah,
justice.
isn't that interesting? Yeah,
That's the
because
third time he
it
said
was
that.
in academic literature.
Yeah,
It was in its revolutionary language.
yeah,
This is what revolutionaries talk about. This is what he's talking about religions in Nicaragua and stuff like that. This is
yeah,
what justified their heinous acts against other human beings.
yeah,
It was because it was for social justice, it was for equality, it was for your rights,
yeah. And
without really maybe understanding the deeper ramifications for those things, because it's not something that most people ever fucking experience in a industrialized Western world. It's just not something we're familiar with. So we can have romantic ideas because we've seen movies, we've read books.
mm,
Like
yeah,
that's our understanding of a lot of this stuff. For a lot of people, they don't take it seriously. Like they don't think about it critically. They don't think about it any deeper than what what the propaganda on its face is. They don't think about things. It's very frustrating I feel like a fucking crazy person most of the time. I'm sure you probably feel the same way. You're like, how
do.
the fuck can you think this? Like, how can you advocate for this? Have you thought about this at all?
Yeah. I have a lot of sympathy for the younger people, so people
Oh, so do
between the
I.
ages
Yeah.
of 15 and 23. But you know, I don't know, man. I just feel like once you're at 23, 24, there's really not a lot of excuses to continue.
Well, I'll give people until they're about 27, because your prefrontal cortex does not fully develop until you're 25, which is the part of your brain that
That's
deals
what
with
I've heard.
coherence and rationalization. So
Yeah.
like I will give people till they're 27, and if they can't get
Okay.
with the program, then off to the gulags.
Absolutely. Okay.
Called the Novosti Press Agency. Okay, so we reached that point. The next step is destabilization.
And I wish I could see what he was wrong. Oh,
Again, this
swinging.
word says for itself what it is. To destabilize all the relations, all
Hold
the
on a second. Hold on a second. This is some of his KGB trickery.
Yeah.
Okay, he wrote destab.
Wow, that was
He did not
crazy.
read. He didn't even write destabilization. So he's lying to people right out. He's trying to brainwash people in real time. Trying to trying to destroy them.
Yeah, what's a KGB?
Always.
and organizations in a country of your enemy. How you do it? You don't have to send a battalion of KGB agents to blow up bridges. No, you let them do it themselves. The area of application is, again, it's narrower now, not like the previous case. The overt legitimate actions of the KGB in this case would be hardly noticeable. There is no crime if a professor who recently went to USSR introduces a course of Marxism-Leninism in a Californian college, for example. Nobody is going to come to his doorstep and say, okay, mister, come, you're under arrest. No, it's not a crime. It's not even considered a moral crime against your country. So the area of application here is narrowing down to economy, again, labor relations, right? To law and order, plus military. And economy, law and order. Yes, and again, the media, but wider scope, a little bit different. I'll explain later. Okay, basically 3 areas. Economy, the radicalization of bargaining process. If on that stage, we still could achieve, theoretically, some positive compromise between the negotiating sides with say, arbitrary introduction of arbitrary judges, a third side, objectively judging the demands of both sides. Here, it's radicalization. On the stage of destabilization, we cannot come to compromise even within a family. The husband and wife couldn't figure out which is better. Husband wants his kids to eat at the table, and wife wants a child to roam around the room and drop food all over the floor. They cannot come to compromise unless they start a fight. It's impossible to reach a compromise, constructive compromise between neighbors. Some people say, I don't like you to watering your lawn at that time because exactly at that time I'm walking my dog and he's getting nervous. He cannot pass his bowels, you know. So they can.
You see what it says on the right-hand side? Mobocracy. So the mob justice.
Oh yeah, yeah.
How crazy is that?
Because it's all the same things. It's all of the same roadmaps.
Yeah.
Like he just saw it before it was really had come to fruition. Maybe it took a little longer than he thought it would. He said 15 to 20 years. It was more like 50 years, 40 years.
Yeah.
Because and I think that a lot of that has to do with, at least in the Western world, especially in the United States and in the UK for a long time, like we did have a sense of individual presence.
Yes.
We weren't collectivists until, I don't know, the late 90s.
I was going to say that.
Actually, maybe post 9/11, that's really when a lot of this kind of stuff starts taking on in earnest because everybody wanted to feel like they were part of a collective. The public consciousness shifted to how we thought of ourselves and how we thought about civic duty and how we thought about what those things actually meant. And maybe it opened people's minds up a little bit more than it had been before to these kind of ideas. Which, maybe I'm being very broad there,
but I mean, I think in the UK, I'm kind of going back to the Blair thing. Like almost as soon as Blair got in, things changed massively. So I think and that was 97. So I think for us, it probably was.
Well, because it starts like top down change, right? Like he changed the way your education system worked. He changed the way your public services worked. All of those kinds of things fundamentally changed. And then you got into that 20-year process, that 15 to 20-year process where it was like, okay, now we found a way to get in. We can actually implement these things on a much larger scale. Because but before, it really was trapped in universities.
Yeah.
It didn't have much play outside of it. It slowly crept in through media. It slowly crept in through television and movies. And but it didn't really take a hold because people just didn't take that stuff very seriously.
Doesn't it blow your mind how, I know that you can't look at them as average examples of people, but how a lot of the people that were sort of famous 80s rockers, famous 80s Breakfast Club style actors that, they really saw like the best that like American freedom had to offer.
Yeah.
These are the same people now that are trying to force this crap on the youth of today.
Yeah.
And their children.
They're fucking state actors. They're bootlickers, dude. Like, for lack of a better way to put it, it's like every almost all punk rockers, even just to circle back to the Joe Rogan stuff, you have like Neil Young and Joni Mitchell talking about how he needs to be censored. Like, what? You guys that is so counter to your entire fucking
Narrative.
presence as celebrities, as musicians, as everything. And like, you don't want people to hear a couple of fucking podcasts? You think the world hinges, the health of the Western world hinges on a
Rogan.
couple podcasts?
Yeah, I know. And you know, for the guy to put out the song "Rocking Out the Free World,"
Yes, the great irony.
it's incredibly ironic.
Because they're all fucking communists, dude. They're all communists. Every single one of them. I'm convinced. I believe it now. Jane Fonda, communist. Well, she was a communist. Actually, in the other, I don't think he talks about it in this one, but in that the kind of truncated, he brings up Jane Fonda specifically as being like a very subversive presence.
Yeah, and I wonder if she actively knows that.
Yes.
Or if it's, you think?
Well, I think she actively knows it in the sense where she feels like righteous about it because she wants to change the world.
But do you think that she goes to bed at night and knows she is a communist?
Probably more than you would imagine.
Right. Okay.
At least a socialist. I guarantee you, if you were to if you were to put that to her, she'd be like, "Yeah, of course."
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
Winston stopped writing, partly because he was suffering from cramp. He did not know what had made him pour out this stream of rubbish